moral and political, precipitating upon us novel problems which demand immediate solution, banishing the old before the new is half matured to replace it, bringing the nations into close contact before yet the antipathies of race have begun to be eradicated, giving us a history full of changing fortunes and rich in dramatic episodes. Joseph Nimmo, who wrote prolifically about railways, thought, "The railroad, with its vast possibilities for the advancement of the commercial, industrial, and social interests of the world, ran directly counter to the pre-existing order of things." Theodophilus French, a federal auditor of railroad accounts, whose honesty was more suspect than his expertise, thought them the great civilizer of modern times. I am far more interested in the operation of the Transcontinentals and other Western railroads in the United States, Canada, and northern Mexico than in the initial construction of these roads, on which there is already a vast literature. What concerns me above all are the entrepreneurs who created them, the men who worked for them, and the large numbers of citizens who came to oppose them as dangerous, corrupt, and threatening. I group the trunk lines of Western Canada and northern Mexico with the American Transcontinentals because the American roads were so tightly linked to the Canadian Pacific and the railroads of northern Mexico that they cannot be unhooked. Taken together, the American, Canadian, and Mexican railroads were sources of great national pride and great national discontent. But in many ways their most striking quality was that they formed an international network linking the three countries. At one point I had illusions that this would be a comparative book, but I found that I was dealing with one large interconnected railroad system financed from the same sources and controlled by a relatively small set of interests. The Transcontinentals, more obviously than other railroads, were entwined with the state. Governments subsidized them, secured their rights of way, regulated them, and protected them. The first Transcontinentals began as hybrid public-private enterprises and ended up as private corporations, but their public roots remained. By the end of the century, with the Transcontinentals under political attack virtually everywhere, the government suppressed their workers and protected the rights and enforced the obligations of their owners and managers in the name of public good and public order. The railroads, in turn, were agents of the expansion of these states. What these railroads allowed the governments of the United States, Canada, and Mexico to accomplish in the late 19th century was remarkable. In the United States, they took credit for conquering the Indians. As Charles Francis Adams put it, "The Pacific Railroads have settled the Indian question." The railroads also took credit for settling the West. They took credit, indeed, for all of the development between the center of the continent and the Pacific. Non-Indian settlement had taken 2.5 centuries to reach just beyond the Mississippi River in the United States, and had crept only along the eastern Great Lakes in Canada. Neither Spain nor Mexico, despite centuries of struggle, had managed to control the northern reaches of Mexico. Together, these railroads formed a lever that in less than a generation turned western North America on its axis, so that what had largely moved north-south now moved east-west. Railroads poured non-indigenous settlers into a vast region that nation-states had earlier merely claimed. They did not do this in response to a popular demand for development of these lands. Instead, they created the demand through vast promotions unlike anything seen until that time. Having promoted new settlement, they helped integrate these settlers into an expanding world economy so that wheat, silver, gold, timber, coal, corn, and livestock poured out of it. It may seem both churlish and mad to question the railroad's accomplishments. No one, after all, claimed that they came without a cost, particularly to Indian peoples, or that mistakes were not made and a certain amount of corruption generated. But these admissions tend to be of the say-what-you-will variety. Say what you will, the result was worth the price, and the lives of tens of millions of people were the better for it. But questioning these accomplishments is what this book does. The issue is not whether transcontinentals eventually proved to be a good idea. It is whether they were a good idea in the mid and late 19th century. The idea of a transcontinental railroad was not in and